did that look like? And what needed to be done differently? And a time when you saw that you were being very accountable and you felt good about it, and what did that look like? I want us to have this discussion. We can have it either now, I can go ahead to present, or I just go ahead to present. What would you like to do? You want to have this discussion now?
Yeah. This is better.
Yeah? Okay. Who would like to share? Think about your work experience in the NGO world. It doesn't have to be with Save the Children, the example. It can be of another organization you were part of or not part of. You could be observing from a distance, but it didn't look right, or it looked really good. Yeah?
Okay, I would like to share experience with Save the Children. In 2010, there were huge floods in Pakistan, and we had a very large emergency response. We were distributing food, and I was with food team, and we went to a distribution site. The scene was like this: there were thousands of people, and then our team was there, and we were providing them this food. WFP provided food. By the time, people, they were struggling with each other to get the food. So what I saw was like, they don't have any kind of control, they don't have any say. Whatever we were giving, they were happy with it. So as an NGO worker, I felt that I have some power right now, and these people are almost powerless. Their voice or their suggestion, nobody is right now concerned about these people. The only thing is that these people survive in this disaster, and they are assisted with some sort of food. So when the next distribution started, we discussed with our team member that this is not the way. We know that these are affected people, they are helpless, they don't have anything to do. But we are from an organization which believes that we are accountable to communities and to children. So next time we went there, we announced on megaphone that we are from Save the Children, we will be doing this program, and these are your rights. If there is anything wrong, if food quality is not good, if quantity or quality is not good, if you are facing any problem, so do let us know, or something like this. So the next distribution was better than the previous one. So when we ended the program, our distribution was much improved with the quality, and people, they were coming to us and they were sharing their complaints about food, about the long queues for everything. What I want to say is, like, we made a connection with them. It was not like we are giving something and they are taking something. It was almost like we were listening them, they were providing us their feedback, and we were trying to improve as an organization. So this is my start when I realized that this is the situation, answering your first question. And the second thing is a small example, maybe it is very small to other people, but it's very big to me. I went to a CFS, a child-friendly space, and there were a few girls and children playing. We did an exercise with them to know their feedback and complaint. So a 9-year-old girl told us that nobody ever came to them to know their feedback, what they want and what they do not want. So we said that, okay, so now we are here. If you have anything, or if you have any complaint, being a Save the Children member, please share it. She shared that she really loves to do this skipping rope. She really liked to do skipping. And there was one rope in this child-friendly space, but that was lost. So she was very sad that that was her favorite activity. So she registered a complaint with us. So when we came back, we discussed with child protection team, and next day they gave the girl the skipping rope. And we visited next time. That girl was very much happy, and she was very much excited that we entertained her, we acted on her complaint. So that is something which I, as a Save the Children school employee, I feel very proud that yes, we are accountable to children, and we are doing maybe a little thing, but we are doing something for children. So these are two answers to your question.
Right. Thank you. Others to share?
Yes. My name is Mohsin Jatuat Hassan, brief, but I have to touch on it. In 2010 in Kenya, we have implemented BSFP program, and we found out that we have not provided kind of shelter as well as water to the beneficiaries And the queue is long, and it's like the beneficiaries, their children are crying in the hot sun, and yeah. And then when the distribution ends and I went to go out to do the post-distribution monitoring, I developed some kind of questionnaires, and then just to gauge how the distribution went, how long would you take in getting the distribution, getting the food. So the response were too negative, and I shared back with our meat coordinator as well as the program managers, and then the same information was being taken back to the WFP, which was the lead agency in giving out the food. So some of the information was being incorporated, and then in the second round, it was responded by providing a kind of shelter to the beneficiaries, as well as food. And so in the first instance, when we are not providing shelters and water, we are not accountable. So it's like we are not, I feel myself that we are not accountable to the beneficiaries. But in the second round, when we provide shelters as well as waters, I feel like we are accountable to the beneficiaries. So when I went round for the second post-distribution monitor, I found out that the response was positive, and some of the beneficiaries are happy about what we have did. So we implemented the same in 2011, late 2011 as well as early 2012. So it was a kind of reflecting of providing what the beneficiaries are expecting from us. So
a little bit of listening, like the difference. Right. Gloria.
Yes, I worked in urban emergency projects until 2007, and we did have some form of accountability, though it raised further problems and questions, because we mainly involved children. We gave information to children. Our challenge was we focused on the child more than the household members involved, but we did work with children from the beneficiary selection. So in that process, we informed them about the project, and we got contributions from children. And throughout the project, we had feedback meetings with the children, where they informed us on issues to do, like for example, when we had shelter projects, food aid, and the like, on how communities were receiving the project, and they really did inform program quality and all. But we faced challenges because we were not really prepared, or we didn't know it was accountability. I only realized now that it was accountability because we thought it was just child protection and child participation mainstreaming. We faced challenges from other agencies who felt that we were on a fault-finding mission. So, but to some extent, I feel we did implement accountability, but it wasn't deliberate. So we didn't know it was accountability.
I think that's a good point though, is that you don't have to have an additional piece of work or an additional project to be accountable to children. It's part of the programs that are going on already. So it's part of the work you do without even realising it. So if you can make that clear when you're starting the programme, then it's easy to implement it.
Yeah. Any other examples? Bill, do you have an example when you thought, it's not right?
Not really. No, I mean, I've been more involved at the organisation level, trying to encourage the organisation to take this more seriously, which is
As its challenges.
an ongoing battle.
Anyone else? One more maybe?
I have an example that links to what Gloria and Becca just said, really, which was the project that I was involved in evaluating in Bolivia. I basically found it to be a really good example of being accountable to communities, but it hadn't been looked at through this accountability lens by the people who were involved in it, which in one way was quite good because it meant that it was really embedded in the way that it worked. Worked with women's organisations, so from the very beginning the organisations came to Save the Children to say we want to be part of this, and then the way that the project really played out was that Save the Children facilitators strengthened their organisations to further their own agendas with a health focus, and specifically sexual reproductive rights and gender was a big part of it. And I conducted quite a lot of qualitative research and focus groups with the women who were involved in it, and the sorts of comments that were coming back that were just so incredibly positive, and that you could really link back to the sense of ownership they had of the work they were involved in, I was really pleasantly surprised. I'd done a literature review before I went, and I thought the opposite was going to happen. That is a really positive example because of how central their opinions were to the entire project. But like I said, nobody had said, we're being so accountable here to our communities, and used the word, but it was really there. And on a more challenging side of things, since I've been here, I've just picked up on some discussions going on in my own team where they've done some work in designing a programme in country at a community level, and then have felt that the programme that's sort of got signed off to go ahead is really missing that input that they gained at the beginning. And the reason that they've been given for it was that they couldn't, the words were that, yeah, but you couldn't, it was good, but you couldn't sell it, which is a worrying.
We couldn't sell it to the community, is that?
No, I think more to the money.
Right. Okay.
And balancing, like that's one massive thing to think about accountability, is balancing it, making sure you get the money to do what it is you want to do, but not at all costs.
For example, if you got
Yeah.
So I was thinking, so my worst case one was we went out to the community to do a water rights assessment for a new project, and we went to this village, and we just sat down and started going through the questions, and they suddenly came up with, they said, World Vision, sorry, the organisation I used to work with, has been working in this area for 6 years, and you've done women's vocational projects, you've done livelihood projects, and the key thing that we're interested in is water. Like, we've had continuous drought for 6 years, and you've never come to ask us about this before. And the reason we hadn't was because there'd never been any donor interest before. And so it was really kind of a key moment when I was just thinking, wow, you know, these people knew all along what they wanted, and it was only until the donor interest was there that we actually asked them. So that's kind of the negative side. But then on the positive one, we've been delivering these STI HIV clinics in a city centre for, I think it had been 9 years or something. We went to write a new proposal to the donor, and they pushed back. They said, you've been running these clinics for 9 years, you know, where's the sustainability in this? You know, we don't agree with this. And we were able to successfully argue to them that, first of all, the government still didn't have any funding to take over them, and second of all, it's what the community really needed, because there were absolutely no other facilities. And by having that evidence from the community and being accountable to them, we could push back on the donor. It's kind of opposite example.
That's great that you were able to do that. Yeah. Sometimes we feel so paralysed that we think, oh, we can't push against the donor, that's what they want. But I think there's that room that takes a bit more courage in them saying, you know, this is actually what we're hearing. Really, you need to listen to this, and this is the priority sort of thing. It's all, and the whole thing around, you know, balancing the strategic focus and priorities of the donor, of our own organisation, and that of the community. And there's a lot of examples when we have such discussions that come up that touch on that very same thing that you were telling us about, unfortunately. It's not always easy. Yeah. Did you want to say something? Last one.
Yeah.
There we go.
One positive example and one negative example.
Okay.
Yeah. The positive example is that we capacitated children and communities that totally agree, and with how many budget and how they were monitored. What they think is quality in education for them, like not like our bookish knowledge of quality, not what their perception of quality education in their community, and then how they will monitor the quality in their community, how they will report it. So, and then how children will, observe and report. So we discussed that, and then it was decided that if anything is hardcore, then children will tell the parents, mom or dad. and we replicated that thing in, so we have about 100 local learning groups. So we provided that training to 100 groups in the communities. And with the help of that, we found out that, the communication between children and their parents regarding the schools is improved. Plus, the communication between parents and the teaching staff is also improved. So, and the organization was, data was coming to us that this is the good points in the project, and these are the points where we want to improve in the community. So the communities and the children were monitoring, and they were reporting, and they were identifying solutions. So they were leading that process. So it was very good, and we felt as an organization that we are accountable to the children and to the community. So this is a good example.
That's wonderful. That
Yeah.
you were able to actually ask them what success looks like and work with them.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing all those. I mean, there's so many examples that can be talked about here about NGO accountability, where tons of money is being wasted, we're not listening enough, we come in barging with our priorities and do our own thing and get out, and are not sustainable, and again are not flexible and not changing based on the community and what the community are saying and want to see on the ground. I mean, I can give one example and then that's it. I've seen when I was in Indonesia a few years ago, I've seen Save the Children actually spend a lot of money bringing in very nice fancy tents for children to play in under 45 degrees Celsius. And of course nobody was playing under them. It was so hot. And what people did was park their motorbikes. And this was a time when people were asking for every single penny to start rebuilding their homes, repairing their homes that were destroyed by the earthquake, start rebuilding temporary shelter and things like that. Save the Children did not have a team in place at the time in country to start temporary shelter programming. They didn't have the expertise. But they had managed to secure the largest amount of funding amongst the larger NGOs on emergency response, but they didn't have the necessary expertise. So what were they going to do? They were going to blow their money on things that were not crucial, that were not terribly important and necessary for the people. And that became a huge thing in country in the response. Everybody was complaining. So things like that happen all the time. Situations where we do actually harm in terms of who we work with and who we side with and who we aid, how our money can be kind of hijacked, our resources can be hijacked by conflict parties and things like that. All of these things are issues that are related to accountability of NGOs to communities. So, and we'll discuss those in the next hour when we discuss accountability and what it means. It's a very loaded word. It has so many things under it. It's huge. But I want to now tell you a little bit about the organizational context. What is it here? And our expectations from you. We've been listening to some of your expectations from us. Can everybody see this clearly? Is that enough? If you want to come closer, you can come closer. So this week we want to make sure you understand concepts and theory. You will practice some of the assessment tools, so you will learn by doing. We will try to make it clear how the assessments can feed into an accountability framework for a country or a work plan, at country or at project level. We'll discuss those things. We want you to feel confident to train others. So when you look at the agenda, the sessions and the way they've been organized, especially, some of them are on specific topics and bite size. So what I will do is I will give you a very simple session plan so that you can replicate this training with colleagues in country either, in 2-3 days at like a given chunk of time, or say in 5 sessions over 2-3 weeks time, over 5 weeks time. 1 session a week, because sometimes you're not able to get people together in a room for 3 days in a row because everybody's busy. So we want, we will deliver those and discuss with you what works for you in your country, whether to do a chunk of training or whether to do separate sessions. And you'll have a plan for that. So in that sense, this week is intended to be a training of trainers as well. You'll get the materials, you'll get slides, and you'll get a simple session plan for each of the critical topics. And you will have done it here, you will have seen us facilitate it here, so that you will take that with you. We want you to feel confident about setting up mechanisms in country, and we want you to share experiences as well as challenges here. So that's kind of the week objectives. In terms of our expectations, this is kind of the flow of the work through the year. Sorry, you guys, some of this stuff is really about country work, but take what you can out of it and we can discuss as well. So in January, we do some pre-work with you. We sent you some readings and such. Then we are here in February, we're training together. And then once you go back, we want you to form a team of focal points and make sure they're trained. And then basically it's about looking at what's your work plan for the year and starting implementation with your team. One of the learnings from the first year of the breakthrough is that one person is not enough to lead and implement and do everything. So that's why we want to bring in a team of focal points so that you are the coordinator and they are key to implementation. Yeah? So implementation, and at the end of the year we try to look at documentation of learnings and sharing that across the countries. So again, to recap, our expectations from you are selecting a team of focal points when you go back, training them, implementing some sort of an assessment so everybody kind of has a sense of where things are in their projects in terms of accountability, where the gaps are, where the strengths are. Having a plan for this year and starting the implementation of that plan. And then we'll be in touch with regular telecons and basically quarterly reports. So this is kind of the accountability, structure, staffing structure in country. We want to engage the country director and the director of PDQ and implementation. We try to communicate with them from our side on key issues, on key expectations from the countries, key learning points. So we do share some emails with them, and some of them are very responsive. Some PDQs are really into this. Lisa is wonderful. She comes to us more than we go to her sometimes. Monica is very good. She isn't PDQ, is she?
She's part of PDQ.
She's part of PDQ.
But director PDQ is Laria.
Huh?
But our department is led by Ilaria.
Laria, okay. I've been in touch, but I'm largely communicating with Monica. With your team, I don't know who the PDQ director is yet.
Yeah, she is promoted last month, and Rachel Marento.
Okay, so
Yeah.
she's new.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we try to kind of, if we're not already in touch with these key people, we'll get their contacts from you and we'll write to them and we'll start some sort of dialogue. You are kind of at the center of this process, and the team you put together is also key to the implementation of this work. Implementing an accountability framework or a work plan means basically working on improving information sharing, setting up complaints mechanisms, improving the scope and quality of participation of children and communities in our programs, incorporating accountability into new proposals and monitoring and evaluation exercises in country. So these are basically looking at the variety of activities in a given program that we'll be looking at. So Well, before we move on any further, we want to ask you, we'll be here together for a week. If you were to share your feedback or complaint about this process, this training, the setup, the way it's run, the content, anything really, we want to ask you how you would like to express that. You can have a little discussion. Do you have a preferred method?
Well, I was just going to say, if it's a minor complaint, like the room's too cold or the room's too hot, or whatever, then maybe we can just say it out loud. For other things, you could maybe have a flip chart paper on the wall. We just write notes on. We check them at each break, and then maybe for more in-depth complaints, I don't know. We'd need another way of doing that.
Sensitive
Maybe
stuff.
Yeah, something anonymous.
Do you want to directly come to me or a selected person in the room, and then they'll come to us?
I will communicate to you or Rebecca. Yeah. If there is anything.
Yeah, okay, so that's your preference. Let's agree on something together. So there's one system in place now, everybody's doing different things.
I think it's better if we place a post or something on which we can write, and at the end of the day or at the end of session you can go through it. It will be easier to communicate. And if we need any response immediately, we can directly come to you.
Does that sound okay? Everybody? Zoe, Gloria, Georgina? Is that alright? So, feedback flip chart, which we'll look at the end of each day. And if there are immediate issues, you come to me or Becca. Is that alright? Great. Today we'll look at some of the structure and the history, and then basics, relationship with accountability, quality, and then the assessment tools, as I said before. I want to give you some of the organizational background in terms of where we sit. Emily! Welcome! She's going to sneak in. I'm sorry. I'm delighted to see you. So, with good starting. Do you want to say who you are quickly, and then we'll come in?
Hello everyone, sorry I'm late. My name is Emily Chesa. I work in the education team. I know most of you.
That's excellent. Yeah, you can mingle later. I'll tell you about our particular team and in which the department in which we sit. We sit in a department called Program Policy and Quality in Zetron UK. This is a department that brings together technical expertise in our thematic areas in development work. Yeah? So your health, your hunger livelihoods, your education, protection and care is sitting here. And then also some cross-cutting elements. Your impact evaluation evidence, your M&E people, and your accountability and participation people are here. So this is our little team. We have a dotted line to the humanitarian technical unit, which is the technical expertise on the humanitarian side. So it's like sister departments, and both basically hold the technical expertise of the organization together. We will be talking about a breakthrough. So what's this breakthrough? And I'm sure a lot, you know a lot about it already. Excuse me. This is from last year. Save Children UK has 6 breakthroughs, which are areas of strategic importance to the organization where we want to make a major improvement on. There's funding available for them. We bring together our technical support to country offices in those areas. So accountability breakthrough is one of the breakthroughs. It's been running since 2011. This is its 3rd year. These are the other priorities of the organization. Making world-class programs, the No Child Born to Die campaign, and we want to become an outstanding organization. So there are elements of accountability work in these other ambitions as well. This is the programming side of it. This is also the programming side of it, the program quality work under here. But in terms of outstanding organization, we do have accountability-related objectives, which is around becoming a more transparent organization, becoming, improving program accountability is part of it, looking at, our policies. Do we have an information sharing policy? Do we have an accountability framework for the organization? Do we have a complaints policy for the organization, and things like that. Also, partnership work that's happening is also related to accountability, looking at how we form partnerships, and our accountability to our partners is part of the organizational accountability work. So as I said, we're a breakthrough. We work with 15 countries each year. It's actually more because, we are able to give £10,000 to 15 countries, but we support, without funding, more countries. Each year we grow, and the ones that we used to work with, we don't just drop them, we continue working with them. And we want to establish systems and good practice of child participation and accountability. So in 2013, these are the countries we're working with. 5 of them are in the 3rd year. 6 of them are in their 2nd year, and 4 of them are in their 1st year. So you are in the 1st year group. We couldn't get someone from the DRC, unfortunately, because they do not have their coordinator in place yet. But this reflects our commitment to supporting a given country for at least 2 years, because we know that 1 year is a very short amount of time. Our objective for the breakthrough for this year is that 0.6 million emergency affected children and children in 2/3 of our program countries benefit from the opportunity to hold us to account for the appropriateness and effectiveness of our programs. So this is looking at, what's the percentage of the emergency response that covers 0.6? I'm not sure, is it like 2/3? Is it the same? Do you remember how we calculated that? So I think it's an ambitious number for all the emergency programs that we do. We want to have basically strong accountability mechanisms, and the same is true for the 2/3 of our priority country programs. And with our breakthrough, we're working in most of those country programs. In terms of the structure we work with, this is not terribly great, but I hope it's still helpful anyway. So we've got coordinators. We have you in country. This is our team here. We have something called a breakthrough strategy group. Each breakthrough has a strategy group that brings together senior management from within Save the Children UK. So there are generally directors of relevant departments. For example, Bill heads this group. Adam, who is the head of humanitarian technical unit, is in there. Somebody from HR is in there. Our child safeguarding deputy director is in there. Our SCI program, head of program support, is in that strategy group. All of the people whose work are related to accountability in one way or another are in there, but they are really at directors level. So it's a group that is supposed to own the breakthrough, give direction, provide vision for the breakthrough, and report on the success of the breakthrough to the Program Impact Board. Program Impact Board are really the biggies of our organization: the CEO, the Director of Global Programs, and who else is in there? COO, Chief Operating Officer. The very directors of our organization are sitting here, and they're looking out for how is the breakthrough doing, basically. Are we delivering against our targets? So that's kind of the linear, sort of a hierarchy, if you will. You send your quarterly report to me, I send it to the strategy group, and it's sent to the impact board, yeah? That's how it goes. And then there's the SCI side of things. I don't know how much you correspond with SCI regional staff. Do you? Do you talk to regional staff from SCI?
Yeah.
Their technical
Yeah.
people or?
We talk with the London office and the regional office in
Okay.
Singapore.
Okay. And then there's the SCI Centre, which is in London. This is the centre of Save the Children International. So we have a lot of communication with the centre here, talking about the success of the breakthrough, the tools, the practices, and things like that. And then also on this side is the regional desks that are set up here to support fundraising, to support the grants management. So sometimes we have to liaise with them. And they also follow on the implementation of the breakthrough grants. So sometimes you might hear, for example, from a colleague from our regional desk saying, well, you said you would spend X amount in Q3, but you haven't, what's going on? Something like that. Okay, our approach. As I said, form a team, look at a self-assessment, put together a plan or a framework, and that plan gets integrated into the country annual plan. So that our work is part and parcel of the country plan. It's not something separate just because we're a breakthrough and there's a little bit of money attached to it. It's not a separate project. It's not a separate accountability project. Here in the accountability project, we're going to do X, Y, Z. It's absolutely not like that. I would very much like you if you messaged against this sort of understanding in your country offices where we talk about projectizing or siloing this kind of work. The breakthrough is there to help the country office improve work on quality and accountability. And we do it in a variety of different ways. It depends on what the country's vision and priorities are. We're very, 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 very flexible to help you. It's not a separate project. We want to help form a team. We want to help you identify a direction and priority, and we want to help you start implementing it. But you are in the driver's seat. It's not a donor kind of implementer relationship here. We are kind of there to support you advance in this area. It's about program quality. It's about linking to the country's vision around program quality. I want to make that very, very clear. And it needs to be part and parcel of the country plan. And not a breakthrough, separate breakthrough thing. So this is our approach. We also set performance objectives on accountability for key staff, especially this group. We want to budget for accountability, new proposals, and we want you to start supporting partners around this. In country offices where we work through partners, this work happens with them. Of course, it starts with our own stuff. We have to gain their buy-in. We have to make sure they understand this. But the partner is absolutely key if we want to see any difference happening for the child or the parent that is involved in our programs. Our tools, which you will already probably know, you may know, or if you don't, you will be familiar with this week. We have 5 how-to guides. They are short tools. And we have 3 films, and we have a variety of assessment tools. These are our key guidance, and they are in that folder, and they constitute kind of the key documents for this work. And there was a question, I think, from you, Hassan. We want 1 guidance.
Yes, 1 guidance. We have 5 tools. But we have to be into a sequence, 1 manual, which has all these tools, so that if we go through this document,
it tells us
all
everything.
information from first to.
Yeah.
I mean, we have these tools.
Yeah.
All we need to do put into 1 document along with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. it's always, you know, a kind of a choice between, do you give somebody a manual and they're like, oh my God, another manual? Or do you give, you know, because I'm coming from the field, I always thought I just want 2-3 pages, no more than that. So I started with that, but now increasingly SCI is also telling me the same thing. Let's put everything together into a manual, so that's something that we'll start working on in the next couple of months, and we'll get there. But it will, the content will be this, basically, yeah? So, this is on the UK side of things, the background, expectations, where we sit. Now I want to tell you a little bit about the SCI side of things. Have you seen this before? What is it? So this is the new SCI quality program quality framework. It was put together last year, and it brings together these 5 important pillars and various elements of program quality. So, evidence-based, learning agenda, thematic excellence, monitoring and evaluation, and accountability are the pillars, the 5 pillars of our program quality. This is very new. SCI is working to basically, I think, put the meat into it. Do you want to say anything about it, Bill?
Only that it is new. And I
Yeah.
think it's now been piloted in Asia, is that right?
Piloted in a few countries, like Kenya, Bolivia, and a couple of countries in Asia. But the piloting was, as far as I understand, they shared the framework with the country colleagues and said, is this helpful? Does it make sense? Is there anything missing? That sort of thing. And they got feedback from it. Based on this house, this framework, they also put together a program quality review tool, which takes these 5 pillars, and it's like an audit tool for the country office. Are you doing X, Y, Z under this, under this, under this, under this? So they also tested that, I think, in those countries. And now they're thinking about how to take this forward. Yeah? So you will, if you haven't already seen this, you will see a lot of this very soon, I think. And the nice thing about it, of course, coming back to our job here, is that accountability is a pillar of it. And our work on accountability, Save UK's work, the breakthrough work on accountability, is really putting the meat, putting the experience, putting the learning and the guidance in that pillar. This is what SCI has at the moment. They are really coming to us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good that they put accountability separate from M&E. Because normally people resist M&E. So if accountability comes under M&E, they will also resist accountability. But as it is separate, so it will be like, more acceptable.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's an interesting
Yeah.
perspective. Do you
Yeah.
agree? How do others feel?
Like in our country or other countries, M&E as well as accountability, they might together, but the roles are different. Taking accountability alone, but it is more of a combined one. M&E.
I'm just asking to hear more about this because there's this increasing kind of move in the sector to combine these two and to go to a meal approach. Versus what you're saying is people resist M&E, so that's separated so that they don't also resist.
Yeah.
It's slightly different, but it's still interesting. Hassan?
I think accountability it will not be possible without monitoring and evaluation. It has a very strong connection with
Yeah.
M&E. So if they mean to put accountability in a separate pillar just to value accountability, that is good. But if they think that both will work in operational terms differently.
If that's the understanding that the linkages are there,
Yeah.
then it's good. And it's also a bonus that it is seen as a separate thing on its own that needs attention. That's also good. Good. We come to an agreement. Excellent. Great. So a few developments on the SCI side, just to keep on your radar, is Jasmine Whitbread, who is the CEO of Save the Children International, this year has accepted to become the IASC Accountability Champion. Now, do you know IASC, Interagency Standards Committee? This is a UN body that brings together the different UN senior leadership of the UN bodies to look at various issues. So they have formed around education and emergencies, they have formed around various other thematic areas, and they have now formed an accountability to affected populations task group. So it's like this, it's a little bit weird acronym. It's an accountability to affected populations, AAT task group. Initially it was a AA working group, and then they said, wow, we're so behind in this, we must make it into a task group. And apparently in the UN world, I've never worked for a UN agency, so I don't know, when a working group becomes a task group, that means that issue is more important. Is that right? Well, that's what I was told. So anyway, it is now a task group with various department heads leading it, and they also involve leadership from the NGOs. And they talk about how can we make the UN system more accountable to communities, and of course, in partnership with, in working with our NGO peers. How can we become together accountable? So it's a UN thing, but it's also open to the sector. And they've come to, for a champion, they've selected, or I don't know, I think she's also nominated herself, Jasmine. So that means that the very head of our organization is an accountability champion in the sector. That's, I think, a huge thing. We don't really know what it's going to look like, but she will have to do a lot of, talking about this and really, championing around this. And part of it will include, as far as I know, talking to donors about accountability, about their expectations from us about being accountable to communities, about possibly maybe giving us space, I hope, in terms of timing, to be a bit more, to slow down a little bit, to spend more time building relationship with communities, to listen more, to set up accountability mechanisms, so for the donors to demand from us more accountable programming. And when it comes to us saying, well, in order to be able to share information more effectively or listen to communities, I need this much extra funds. For them to say, well, actually, yes, I think you need it. So to give us that money as well. So hopefully, good things will come out of it. We don't know what her work around this exactly is. The program quality framework I just showed you. Last year, we wrote the SCI Standard Operating Procedure on Complaints Handling. So there's an accountability working group for SCI. There's an SCI accountability there's an SCI working group for M&E issues. There is an SCI working group for gender, SCI working group for partnership. What else? There's several working groups, yeah? And we have also an accountability working group. Yay. And I'm part of that group. And we are a good group. We work hard. Last year, we wrote the standard operating procedure for complaints handling because we did not have any guidance for the countries around that. So now that's in place, and tomorrow I'll show you all the tools and the materials related to that. So that rollout is supposed to happen this year. A rollout of the SCI humanitarian meal framework is supposed to be happening this year. SCI wants to do an accountability report this year, if we support them on it, which we want to, which will be basically based on the breakthrough reports that we get from our countries. And as I said, we want to put together a manual that brings everything together. And they want to use our tools, but put SCI brand on it. So, and we're happy for that to happen. We don't need a UK tool and it's ours, and so these are some of the things on the SCI side. I think this is the last thing I'm going to show before we go for a break. 2013 is important for us because we have a couple of things happening. We have an accountability impact research. We want to look at the contribution of accountability to the quality of our programs. We always think accountability is a great thing and it brings benefits. We have several assumptions about the different kinds of benefits that it brings. We want to take those assumptions and test them and say accountability makes our programs more relevant, more effective, more efficient, more sustainable. So that's happening. We're doing the research in Burma and Kenya. Kenya bit is not with Save the Children. It's an interagency thing. It's with another agency. Burma is with our programs. We have another research project called Children Measuring Change. Hannah will tell you more about it on Wednesday. It's about working with children, involving them in our program evaluations, to ask questions with us, but also to give us their impression of the impact of our work. So it's like a beneficiary satisfaction research, basically. We have Save the Children UK this year is launching its first organizational accountability framework and report. So that's an important thing for our organization. We'll make a lot of noise about it. And this year we want to work more with proposal writers, with HR and the audit department. So we want to build those linkages with these critical departments in our organization to get accountability more in more of our proposals, accountability in more of our HR systems. We want to look at an accountability recruitment pack, so that accountability features in recruitment, in induction, in performance management. And we want to look at audit department so that when we audit our country offices, issues of accountability are looked at.
Can I suggest something? Like when we talk about this different sector HR audit, I think security is also very important in terms when we are sharing information with community, and secondly, providing them a means through which everyone can provide feedback or something. So it's good to discuss
That's
or
a good point, yeah.
to have some guidance with security, keeping in view that what information will be shared or something. I mean, security should be aware of whatever is happening.
Okay, okay.
In my opinion, maybe we can say.
Yeah, no, we've had a couple of discussions around this last year where some colleagues said when it's risky to share information, the decision involved in how much information to share, who should be involved in that decision? And sometimes the program staff tend to kind of push it to security, but it's not really just the security guy who needs to make that decision. It's really both the program and security need to sit together and discuss. So, but it's a good point. Any other thoughts?
Regarding HR, last year in our CAF, it was a question from the child protection, child rights governance team that, for example, if we are working for child participation and a child is traveling in a Save the Children car or vehicle, if anything happens to that vehicle or accident, then what will be the insurance or those kind of things for that child?
Right.
Yeah. So I think HR is very important.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is touching on safeguarding issues our rules and their implementation, and so yeah, so that's great. We'll look at some of that on Thursday, and very specific examples like that, and the relationship between accountability and safeguarding. Great, Gloria.
I'm not sure whether we'll touch on this later, but I was just thinking of where accountability is being housed, and it seems in M&E is the most. So I'm concerned for our country program is within child protection. I don't know how the practicalities would work as we move into the future, because it is, we say, in child protection, and it has been mainly because of issues to do with funding. It could be housed in M&E or something, but the person really doesn't have funding. So I don't know how this could be worked around.
Yeah.
Going into the
Thanks
future.
for raising that. I think several countries are in a very similar situation, especially in the first year of the breakthrough, when we started working on this. When we asked countries to kind of nominate focal points, they were mostly protection, participation, safeguarding, and M&E people. So kind of really spanning those areas. If it was from a program area, it was almost always protection, because of just how prone protection work is, say, to upholding principles and implementing principles of participation, and how much linked all of that is to accountability. So it was at one area where you could really see good practice of accountable programming. So a lot of the champions and the coordinators were coming from there. Increasingly, we see focal points from M&E teams because of that whole meal approach and understanding. And I think it's really for the country office to make this decision as to what sort of a structure will make sense to take this work forward. It would be good to have a funded position on accountability. It doesn't have to be full-time. It can be part of an M&E work, M&E position, or it can initially be part of, like your position, a protection position, to get the work started. And as we identify our direction, where we're going, implement improvements, are able to demonstrate from one project to the next the difference this is making, as the SMT is more bought into the idea, as you can show them the different examples of structures the different country programs are looking at, which I will show you. Then you have this discussion, and it's all about then looking at proposal writing. What new proposals can we get this posts into? As we get new unrestricted funding into the country office, can we afford another meal officer? Things like that. So this conversation evolves like this. That's what I have seen, at least, that I can speak to. Do you want to say something, Phil, to Gloria's? No?
I just wanted to add that on this, why 2013 is important, also because it is the third year of the of Save UK's accountability breakthrough. And we've always had a view to, in a sense, Save UK wants to champion the whole idea of accountability, but obviously as a member we want to kind of make sure that SCI is actually delivering it longer term. So we're in the process of kind of trying to move a lot of our learning and so on into SCI now, through the ways that you've already described.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I go and visit countries, the PDQ directors have been telling me, well, don't tell me accountability is a Save the Children UK breakthrough and it's a UK agenda. Tell me how accountability is part of the SCI agenda. So that's what I would like to ask our country colleagues to kind of approach this whole issue. When you go back, when you engage your SMT, do not present this as a UK agenda. Talk about the ways in which SCI is picking up this issue, and they see the breakthrough as kind of the lead, the trailblazer. What's the word? Yeah? And that you're part of it. You're part of kind of that leading movement in SCI. that started part of a breakthrough, but increasingly it's an SCI agenda, it's part of the quality framework. We are champions in the sector and so forth. So that hopefully will grab more attention. It's 2:35. We've been sitting a couple of hours. Emily?
One question, I'm just wondering, is gender sensitivity and mainstreaming and conflict sensitivity well embedded in the accountability framework? If so, how? If not, why?
Not well embedded. I think for gender sensitivity, we need to think a bit harder, but I think already we do pay a lot of attention to it in terms of being careful about our different audiences and listening to different audiences. In implementation, I think there's a lot of improvement to be made, and country colleagues can maybe speak to it more effectively. I mean, in Pakistan, we set up a hotline, but only men are calling, for example. But then the team said, hey, we're only hearing from men, we need to listen to children and women, and they did something else. So those reflections are happening, not always, but you know, they're challenges. In our guidance, I think we're pretty good. In terms of conflict sensitivity, no. And that's something I want to really look at, because recently I've started thinking about this whole do no harm thing again. And we'll talk more about this, but I think I need to go back to my do no harm book and look at and revive some of that language, because it's so related to accountability. It's so related to that top line organizational accountability issues, as well as program accountability issues. And we need to get that into our guidance somehow. So thanks for raising that. Break time. I've talked too much. So what does it mean for our programs to be accountable? And this is like a discussion I want you to facilitate with your team. So, tell me.
People can feedback on the programs, and their feedback is responded to.
People can feedback and receive response.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I add so that people feel confident to feedback?
Yeah.
Communities and children are able to influence Save the Children's policies, implementation, design. And the projects affecting their lives.
Influence, design, and implementation. Allah. Anything else?
Boys, girls, men and women
Right?
actively participating
Mm-hmm.
in design,
Mm-hmm.
monitoring and evaluation.
Is this okay? Influence and
Take part.
take part.
Actively.
Actively. Actively take part. Design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Sorry, let me go.
Sharing information on the work of our project to stakeholders, communities and children.
Sharing information
On the work of our project.
on our project. Yes. With stakeholders. Who are they?
Children, communities, donor,
Partners,
local partners,
government,
government.
yeah. Yes.
Being transparent about the work you're doing, what you can, and the limitations and what you can achieve.
So,
Yeah, so I guess it would come under sharing information, how you share it, what you share,
about your limitations.
when you share it.
And what did you say?
Budgeting.
Huh?
Budgeting with the communities and including them in budgeting processes.
Oh, interesting.
Very good point.
Yeah. I think there are projects in Kenya and Uganda where they go to the community and say, we've received a budget of £2 million and this was the proposal, but let's work on a detailed
Yeah,
implementation.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Organization have policies and systems to involve children and adults.
Catherine?
I was going to say, I don't know if you need to unpack this maybe, but I was going to say it's kind of going beyond being the voice of children communities to having evidence to show that we are the voice.
So in terms of our representation of their needs,
But actually having something that backs it up, rather than saying we are the voice, saying we are the voice because for this reason and with this evidence.
how do we actually have the evidence for that?
But the flip side of that would also be not making children as voiceless victims, ensuring that they're in the forefront and, speaking up for themselves as well, and arranging the platform and forums and creating a space for them to raise up issues. Of course, with the do no harm principles in mind.
Yeah, in terms of tools, it's just having the accountability framework because that will ensure that we have documented focus groups or meetings, interviews, that kind of thing.
Creating space for that voice and also, documenting what we hear.
Improving staff competency skills regarding accountability.
This is only staff competencies on accountability or other things?
One other thing as well, all of their competency.
So your technical knowledge, yeah? As well as behavioral. I want to put do no harm. Emily, can you explain what you mean?
Yeah, I think essentially is ensuring that any interventions or any work that you do in a certain region does not exacerbate the tensions or the conflicts within those communities, or does not favor or is not biased towards one particular group. And especially in conflict situations, it's very important to ensure that you're not just creating projects or working in projects that are benefiting the perpetrators of conflict per se in the past. For example, in Kosovo, there was a housing project where most of the houses that were being put up were for the internally displaced or something like that. And the other faction of the community felt that NGOs were rewarding people who were killing them in the first place, giving them houses, and the people who are being affected were getting nothing out of the project. So that created more tensions.
Thank you.
There's a very good article by, what's her name? On Do No Harm. I'll print it tomorrow and bring it.
Mary Anderson.
Mary Anderson, yeah.
She wrote the book.
Yeah. So people can read more about
Yeah,
it.
that would be great actually. Anything else? There's more, come on.
I was just thinking of an example. I was doing an assessment in a very remote field of this, and we'd gone through all the different sets of data we wanted to collect, and I said, okay, so the focus groups with children, how do you want to go about doing that? And there was like a gasp in the whole room, and I was working with the children's NGO. They were like, why on earth would we talk to children? Like, why would we get information from children? Children know nothing, like children aren't formed until they're 18 years old. So it's kind of like maybe engineering a culture of, you know, of why, who we're actually working for.
Yeah.
So, children and adults, I'm going to link that to this. Okay, so giving voice to, again,
But it's more than that, it's kind of like promoting a certain culture amongst like staff internally.
okay.
The child participation.
It's rather than seeing these people are poor and vulnerable, instead saying these people are vulnerable but they still have a voice, they still recognise their needs. We don't go and tell them what they need, they tell us what they need.
Yeah, yeah.
And linked to that as well as the continuous improvement and learning. So we talked a lot about how you get more information from communities, but it's also how you then put that back into your new projects or into the second half of your project.
So being accountable is also about continuous learning and improvement.
What about advocacy?
Accountability is sometimes about speaking out.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Like working with children and communities to be able to hold their governments or whoever accountable.
But the question is really for our programs to be accountable to communities. What does it really mean? Yeah? How about something about our resources? How we use our resources?
Using them responsibly?
Using
You mean
them
financially or?
Yeah. So use resources responsibly.
And perhaps inform communities of the decision making behind that budgeting and those decisions to use
Yeah.
resources in that way.
Yeah.
Engage them.
Transparency, we said. How about something about relevance and meeting the needs? So,
One thing I was thinking about was with the complaints mechanisms and the participation in information sharing, making sure that that's culturally appropriate and that communities can have a say in how they're providing feedback or how they're participating.
so I just put
Communities and children point of view regarding our quality.
yeah.
As you mentioned, relevance, impact, and sustainability.
So seeking their input. Communities evaluation of our impact. Elements, etc. Something about using our resources responsibly to meet the most priority needs, isn't it? That's also about accountability. If the community has been asking for a water project for years and years and years and years, and we just don't ask the right questions and we don't channel our resources to the priority needs, we're not really being accountable, are we, as an organization?
Can we aid to the capacity building of our organization and also the government staff regarding accountability.
What is it? Sorry, what do you want me to add?
Yeah, we have written that capacity building,
Staff competency.
staff competency, technical, yeah. So is it just our own staff or government staff as well?
Government staff,
Yeah.
you said?
Yeah.
This is about our projects,
Okay.
our program. For our program to be accountable to children and communities, we need to make sure that our staff and our partner staff have the competencies necessary to deliver that program.
Because there is a lot of demand from the government that also capacitate us in the monitoring, evaluation, accountability things in Afghanistan. So, and we are planning for that as well. So that's why I shared.
So, are you thinking in terms of, say, sustainability
Yeah.
of our program?
Yeah,
so maybe, build local capacity, be it the civil society or be it the government. Then it's part of our accountability to build local capacity. So that's nice. I like that. Something that's related to that is for our programs to have exit plans. That's part of our accountability, right? We're not going to be here forever, and we need to have exit plans. Yeah?
I'm thinking of informing communities of the conduct they should expect from ACE staff.
Of what?
Conduct.
Of the conduct.
To
Yeah,
expect
that's
from
wonderful. So, informing our project about budgeting and code of conduct. That's something we don't always do. People do not know what sort of behavior to expect of our staff. So they can't hold us to account when we're not keeping their children safe, when there's corruption, when there's this and that, because they feel they don't have the power to, and they don't have the information to do that. So that's very key. Thanks for that.
So for our project to be accountable, we need to take all of these things into account and balance them against our other priorities. So for it to be accountable, we would have to prioritise this over, like for example, the water example, over donor priorities. So it's about that balance as well, where this is a key priority in the decision making.
Yeah, priorities when that comes to balancing priorities, internal and external. That means our organization and donors. Yeah, that's what it means. Any others? Something during emergency response, when we're implementing emergency programs with like other organizations in a given community, what do we need to do?
Communicate with other NGOs.
Yeah, and
Make sure
coordinate.
that we're not duplicating work.
Yeah. So, using our resources responsibly, coordination is part of our responsibility, isn't it? Again, we can't waste resources in the given community, we can't duplicate and so forth. Is this an okay list? Yeah? It's fairly large and we can keep adding to it. I just want to present to you some of the definitions that I like to use. Accountability, as you see, is a loaded word. It has many elements about the way we do our programming. There are bits of it that are about our staff behavior. And this first definition is related to that. As us, as NGO workers, as individuals, in our relationship with the communities. It's about recognizing that there is a big power difference between us and the community. That, especially in an emergency situation, they may have lost everything they have, and they look to us to meet their basic needs. And we come with resources, we come with the possibility of giving them some of the things that they need. So there's a power difference there. And as individuals, we're not in that situation. We work for an NGO, we have a house, we have clothes, we have enough money, we are driving around in cars. So as individuals as well, there's a huge power difference. It's for us to recognize that difference. It's for us to responsibly use that power that we have in that relationship as individuals, also as organizations, as teams, as projects. And also it's about handing over some of that power by way of information sharing, by way of listening, by way of letting people influence us, letting people participate in our work, by way of giving them power to join us in making decisions, by way of saying, you can criticize me and my work, yeah? So when we try to do that, that balance tries to kind of be shifted a little bit. I don't think it ever is like this, because they are still in a very helpless, in a very vulnerable situation. And we still hold the resources, and we still hold a lot of decision-making power. But it's really everyday work for us to recognize that and to be conscious about how can we responsibly use and give some of that power. Because this is, in the end, ultimately, it's about culture change. It's about thinking we are here for the children and we are here for the communities. There are other ways to look at accountability that are a bit more top line. One definition I like is this one. Accountability is about doing the right thing and is about doing it right. So for our work to be accountable, we need to be doing the right kinds of things. We have very limited resources. We come to a community. They have a ton of different needs. Yeah? What are we going to use that money for? What is the right thing to do? Of course, we operate within a lot of constraints. We have donor priorities, we have organizational priorities. We have also a mandate that dictates us that certain way of doing things and certain priorities that say we are a child-focused organization, we're not a WASH organization, we're going to only be able to do things about, upholding children's rights in this community. So it's about really negotiating that space about what's the right thing given our limited resources. And it's also about doing it right, doing it in a quality way. Adhering to the technical standards in our sector about a given area that have been agreed on. Yeah? Accountability is a practical tool linked to program quality as an ethical commitment. So it's an ethical commitment that's linked to quality. It's about a commitment to say, we will make the time to listen. We will make the time to work in partnership with people, to involve them as much as we can. Because it's easy not to involve them. It's easy just to bulldoze in, deliver and get out. But it takes actually a lot of effort, a lot of time to communicate, to share information, to listen, to facilitate participation, all of these things. But it's if we have that commitment to good quality development. This is not about doing accountability. It's about good quality programming. And you know it when you see it. You know a good program when you see it. And these are some of the basic elements of good quality programming. The reason why we are calling it accountability now, the reason why we are banging on about accountability, and it's now the new thing in the sector, is because our organizations have failed over and over and over again in many contexts to do these basics of good programming. And and have managed to turn communities against ourselves. Sometimes the communities reject us. They do not want us. They do not cooperate. They protest some of our work. They do not value our work. In chronic emergency situations, there are films that are made of beneficiaries, of community members saying, these NGO workers, they're useless. All they do is come around and drive around in big cars, and they don't even stop and talk to us, and they're out. They don't value our work anymore because of the way we've come to be seen, because of the way we've come to work. So we are trying to kind of shift that back and remind ourselves the basics of good quality programming. And that's what we're calling accountability. It's not a separate project, it's not doing accountability, it's doing good quality programming. And the last thing I like, this one, is about, accountability is about perfecting the field craft. Again, it's about really perfecting the way we do good quality programming, the field work, the day-to-day development and emergency work that our colleagues, sometimes when we go into the communities, we do. It's about how we establish and maintain a relationship with the community that we're working in. We ask children what they understand from accountability, and they say it's about keeping a promise, it's about communicating well, it's about being honest and open about what you can do and what you can't do. Yeah? Who are we accountable to? For this one, let's do a little thing that you can do with your colleagues. Take a pen and complete as much as you can this little chart. Think of all the different stakeholders we are accountable to as an organization. Who is that? Project beneficiaries. So who are they? Can you pick them?
Boys, girls, community.
Yeah? Okay. Let's put communities. Sorry, government? Yes?
Partners.
Partners, thank you.
SCI officers.
SCI? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Depending on
Yes, SCI, and say, let's say members.
business.
Mm-hmm.
And the boards.
Yeah, board of our organization, yeah.
I guess it comes under donors, but I put UK Public.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Taxpayers.
Oh yeah, definitely more broadly in taxpayers.
Yeah,
I put the public from a media perspective, so if you're portraying
let's
children
put
in a
media.
certain way to raise funds, it has to be accountable.
Mm-hmm.
To ourselves.
Yes,
Community leaders. and
meaning our values and our mandate, yeah? Sorry,
Community leaders and local government.
local government. Communities, community leaders. Okay,
People that support Save the Children campaigns, not just financially, but
okay.
you
Our
sort of more
campaigners.
advocacy side of it.
Can we write to our boss?
To our,
Yeah.
to our line managers?
Yeah.
And our colleagues as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Other NGOs maybe?
Communities of practice.
What do you mean by that?
Other communities that are practicing humanitarian relief and development work like this.
So other NGOs,
Some
but
are not NGOs, they are academics, they are different.
Research bodies.
Research, yeah, scholars.
Or you could turn around to say development actors, because I had things like the UN and the World Bank.
yeah. Okay, nice. Let's take a look quickly to see. So donors, different sorts of donors, trade unions, customers of our shops, our employees. So the organization needs to be accountable to its own staff, to the members, children in all these different roles, parents, media, campaigners, public, volunteers, partners, all these different kinds of partners, networks and coalitions we're members of, government, local government, UK government, private sector, if we take money from private sector under donors, suppliers and consultants, yeah? Well done. Our focus when we're talking about the breakthrough and also improving the accountability of our programs, we want to first and foremost focus on children and their carers and our partners. The argument is we spend way too much time and staff and time and resources on being accountable to donors. Now we need to spend a bit more time being accountable to children and communities and our partners. This triangle is very important for our accountability, for the accountability of our programs. If we want to be accountable to communities, we want to especially if we're working through partners, we want to be first and foremost accountable to our partner. Model accountability in this relationship. If this is not working, then we can't together be accountable to communities. We have to get this right. So in some senses, when the breakthrough wants to be accountable, he wants to get here, it goes through here. We have to start here. So our work really starts here. Together with the partner, then we want to be accountable to communities. We have a lot of work to do in the partnership. First, to model accountability before we can support the partner to be accountable. Emily?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how do we reconcile our definition of accountability with that one of the communities? Because in most of the field offices I've worked in, for example, when it comes to the big vehicles we were talking about, if I'm moving from point A to point B, communities will expect to get a lift, or if I was meeting with them, they want to be ferried with the staff to wherever we are going to put. And it's already at night, and there I go saying, it's Save the Children policy not to carry any community members because you're not insured with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And communities want to send their adolescent boys and girls to support in the compound, and we say no children allowed in this compound because it's Save the Children policy on child safeguarding.
Yeah.
And then the communities start resisting us.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile? Because their definition is if you're here for us, then we should benefit from the resources.
Yeah, all sorts of things. Yeah, of course. I mean, there are things like that that we need to be able to explain because we're a child rights organization. We have all sorts of policies to protect ourselves and protect communities and children. And I think it's not all, I mean, I understand, I recognize it's not always the same thing, the expectations and our rules. But our duty is to be very transparent and explain to the best of our ability the rule and why it's there. And that's it. That's part of our transparency. This is an organization, it's a large-scale organization, and those rules were put in place for a reason. We would like to help you, but maybe there's a story somewhere about we helped somebody in a situation, but that was actually that turned out to be something harmful, and that's why this rule was put in place. We need to be able to find a way to communicate, to explain our rules. Our procurement policies, you know, when you share budget information, the community will come and start questioning, for example. Then you have to explain your procurement policy. We need to be, you know, once we make that commitment to transparency, we need to be able to communicate well about why things are the way they are in an organization our size. And I think there are certain lines with some things we can't cross that line because we think that it's going to be not the same thing as the community's understanding of our accountability or their entitlement from us. Yeah.
So to what extent?
It's not about all giving.
To what extent have communities, for example, informed our accountability concept or the accountability framework itself?
Yeah. No.
How much have they been involved in contributing and saying this is how we want accountability to look like?
Yeah. No. I mean, these are all. I think when the sector started thinking about what's this accountability about? How are we going to put it into practice? What will be our standard for putting that into practice? They talked a lot among themselves, and they also talked to communities. And they took the community input. So, for example, the HAB standard, when it was formed, written in 2007, they did talk to communities. It started as a project in 2003. It evolved. So it does bring in some community feedback. It's about being open, being honest, sharing information, involving people, listening about, these basics. I think a lot of them came from the community. But it won't always be. In a way, it's like any standard. It's a global standard. It's simplified. Yeah. So, is our focus clear, and does it make sense? Why this triangle? Now the next thing is quality. Let's do this. What does it mean for our programs to be of good quality? Come on.
Meeting needs.
Yes.
Communities and children are happy with our deliverables.
So satisfaction, community satisfaction.
And ownership.
Yeah, ownership.
I'll put that separately. Community ownership. Okay?
Efficient use of resources.
Okay. What else?
Evaluating programs and learning from
mistakes?
yeah, or things that went well.
I was going to say the opposite, like design based on best practices.
I guess it's sacrifice.
Design based on best practice.
Best practice where?
Locally and globally. Yeah.
Context specific
No, not
design as
necessarily.
well is good.
But based on best practice, but then contextualised.
Yeah, because some best practice will work in Afghanistan, for example, but not in a village in Uganda or Somalia. But a locally homegrown approach like social advocacy teams in South Sudan just emerges from the creativity of the community organically, and it grows and it's replicated in Sierra Leone and Grenada.
Yeah.
So there is the balance, knowing how to balance the two,
So
the best
balance-
practice and the contextual relevance.
Balance, like local and global best practice.
Yeah.
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 Inclusive. Inclusive, right? Very good.
Programs are delivered with coordination of relevant ministries, line departments, with strong coordination.
Coordination,
With partner NGOs, line departments.
partners, government.
Rights based.
Rights-based. Very good.
Scalable.
Sorry? Replicable, scalable, all these words, yes? Yeah, scalable,
Fundable.
Aggressive strategy,
Sustainable.
replicable,
And are underpinned by evidence.
sorry?
Evidence are documented.
Evidence are what else?
Good relationship with partners where it's applicable.
Mhm.
I was going to say generate evidence, which I think is a bit different because it's more linked to M&E. So I'd just say maybe strong M&E framework or something.
Mhm.
gender, conflict sensitivity.
Okay, so gender sensitive. Also linked to conflict sensitive.
I forgot the main thing, mainstreaming accountability.
I was thinking that when you said M&E frameworks, wouldn't you say M&E frameworks?
Accountable. Anything else?
Child safeguarding.
Mm-hmm. Safe.
Effective?
Effective.
Efficient.
So, efficient use of resources, we've got that. Effective, what does that mean?
That we achieve the outcomes.
Achieve
that
the
we
outcomes and
intend.
objectives that it's set out to achieve. So,
Sorry, you have a good quality project that will achieve the objective.
sorry?
Being a devil's advocate,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
yeah,
could
absolutely.
have a good quality project that didn't necessarily meet its objective.
Because the objectives weren't that great in the first place or something.
Yeah. That I'm just picking, I don't know if that's
So how would you define effectiveness? It's not achieving the outcome.
because it achieved something better or something that was more relevant.
So it would achieve outcomes, they just wouldn't necessarily be the intended outcomes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that all comes back to meeting needs. So you
Yeah.
might not have actually identified the needs accurately at the beginning, and then a year or two in you realise it's all kind of evolving into something else. But it
Well,
might be
achieves
more
outcomes
relevant.
that are based on needs or something.
Or creates positive change.
Creates positive change. Link to that maybe.
Could you also put adaptable? So that if the circumstances do
That's
change, then you
nice.
can be flexible to respond to them.
I'll put it separately. Adaptable, flexible.
And like time, the program is completed in time, like not extended or like, yeah. So if it's 1 year program, you should complete in 1 year, not in 1.5 years.
But is that really a sign of quality?
Yeah, because if the program is planned in a good way, then you know it completes in the
And
planned time.
sometimes we make programs that are just like too cramped, and it's just not realistic to achieve the results in say 1 year. If you say, well, we rushed through and then we achieved,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah, you know, when we, because the time is relevant with the budget. So if we expand the time, automatically the budget is, the budget, because they cannot manage the budget within that, I mean, within that plain time. So it means that, you know, the program is not of good quality.
I think that comes down to the start though, when you have good planning, and if you get the program plan right, then that will help delivering on time and delivering sort of.
Yeah.
You won't have something that's too cramped.
Yeah.
If you
So,
can do
yeah,
good
so
planning.
yeah, very good point, because if we see the question is related to the program. It's
Yeah.
not only the program implementation, but the program planning and design process as well. So if we plan the design in a very good way, so automatically it will be completed in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I disagree with you. When you're implementing a project,
Realistic planning. Yeah, maybe
Huh?
realistic planning.
Yeah.
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 Because when you're
please.
implementing a project, you always have to compromise either cost, quality, or time.
Mm.
It always happens. So if you're saying you want to prioritize quality, then you have to be prepared to compromise cost or time.
Mm.
So if it runs over time, it's not necessarily bad as long as you can achieve good quality.
Yeah. I agree.
It depends as well if it's over time. For example, the Olympic Park had to be done by a certain time. If it extended beyond 2012 September, it would not serve its purpose. So some projects have to really be time bound and deliver on target and on time.
Like, for example, if we are distributing blankets, it should be completed in the winter.
Yeah, so for
Yeah.
emergency
Yeah.
programs
Yeah.
it's different.
Yeah.
Timeliness in an emergency
Mm.
response is a
Yeah.
parameter of quality.
Yeah.
So
I think in some types of development projects it's the same as well though. Like if you're doing a loan scheme, for example, if you're giving people their loans late, then their businesses could fail or
yeah,
things like that.
it's about again relevance
Yeah.
and effectiveness when you come in within what time frame you're able to deliver meet a certain need where it's really pressing. Great. Happy with this list? Anything to add? Okay, so you've got accountability and quality here. The next question is, what is the relationship between these two?
I think quality is a larger or the broader term, and accountability falls under quality.
Okay,
It's
is
a
an
subset
element of quality,
yeah,
is a subset, is an element of quality. Who else?
I agree with that, but it's, for example, we put accountable, but I don't think that everything that we put in there would just be like accountable. You know, that it feeds in various different bits in the quality, in all of everything that we brainstorm for quality. There are elements of accountability that feed into different bits. So I agree, but I don't think it should be just sectioned to be accountable in. I think it's quite integral in different places.
I think accountability is a means to achieve quality. So if you're accountable, expect that is the ultimate quality program.
Accountability is more of a bigger picture than accountability. It's more of a bigger picture because it covers a lot. That's why I'm saying a bigger picture.
Okay,
Yeah.
so unlike others, you're saying accountability is the bigger picture.
Quality is a bigger picture.
Okay. Right. Anyone who disagrees with that?
Accountability, as she said, it's a mean to achieve the quality. So accountability should be there. It must be there to achieve the quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed? Is that a consensus?
Are they two sides of the same coin or what? Like you can't do without one
Yeah,
if you want to
yeah.
achieve
I think
the other?
there's a bit of a chicken and egg situation there. But the way I look at it is I ask the question, why do we want quality programs?
It would
Did you
mean
see why?
Why?
to get better results.
When we did this,
Or you're asking.
Yeah, no, I'm asking now.
Okay.
Why do we want quality programs?
Because to fulfill our commitments with communities and children, we are accountable to them.
There you go.
And this is what we.
So that's where it turns around a little bit for me. We want quality programs to be able to deliver our mandate. Delivering our mandate means being accountable to children. So in one sense, accountability is the end goal. We want quality to be accountable. To say we've kept our promises, we've delivered,